In today's episode of Handmade, we're visiting an ornamental iron studio. Let's make some sparks. Welcome to Handmade, a series about artisans and craftsmen who use their creativity and skills to make unique works of art. I'm your host, Greg Downs. In our modern world, it seems like everything is mass-produced, prepackaged, and available on Amazon. So it's easy to forget that some things are still made by hand. Not only will you see these artisans at work, but you'll hear about their creative process and learn how they acquired the skills necessary to make their unique pieces of art. So come on, let's go visit the studio of today's featured artisan. Today we're visiting the workshop of Kevin Johnson, an ornamental iron craftsman. He specializes in custom-made chandeliers, vent hoods, railings, and fireplaces. Kevin grew up working in his father's machine shop, and by age 14, he was making wrought iron fencing for the family home in California. Soon he was fulfilling orders for families and friends, not realizing he was working on his future profession. When you went to college, you majored in architecture and mechanical engineering, and then you went to work for some big corporations.
Yes.
How did you get back into the ornamental iron business?
Well, the ornamental iron business was always something that I could rely on. Every time I got moved or laid off or something from the high-tech industry, they would, I would be faced with some time off, but I needed to feed the family, so there was always somebody that needed a wrought iron fence or a gate or maybe a piece of furniture or something. Never thought I would do it for a full-time job. Once I realized that I can depend on this ornamental iron business, making architectural elements, it was a lot easier. Now our client base really does want handmade products. They do want something that is not something they can buy off the shelf. They want something that won't be seen at somebody else's house, so they don't want it to go to someplace else and all of a sudden see that same design. So they'll actually ask that they're the only ones that would have that particular design. And it's pretty easy to do because, of course, we're still handmade.
Sure.
Everything is a little bit different anyway. Even if we tried to make something exactly the same, it would not be.
Walk me through the process when a potential customer first contacts you and says, hey, I have this idea in mind. What does that process look like?
But it'll be an architect, an interior designer that has an idea of what they want to produce and put into this space, whether it be a vent hood, whether it be a custom piece of furniture. If the room is finished or close to finished, I can look around and see what other elements are in the room and suggest ideas. I come up with a sketch. A lot of times I'll sketch in front of the architect, in front of the designer, sometimes in front of the actual homeowner, and get a reaction of what they are looking for, what they like. Go back to the office, draw an actual drawing for it, price it out. I got to figure out the man hours involved, the materials involved. I'll put that into a quote and then present it to either the client or the interior designer. Then we'll go out and actually take custom measurements if necessary. Sometimes it's a piece of furniture. We already know what needs to be done, and we'll just create it.
You make architectural elements, so how do you balance the functionality of it with the creative aspect of it?
Well, it's kind of nice in that when we're making, let's say, a chandelier, for instance, we know it has to light. Sometimes it doesn't have to light well. Sometimes it's just strictly for an accent, and there's can lights that are actually producing the light for the room. But once we have an idea of what has to be done with a particular element, whether it be a vent hood or a chandelier or a fireplace screen, then you're going to look around the room and figure out what style it needs to be. Sometimes the style can be too heavy. Sometimes a client will come in and say, I want this, this, and this, and I look in the room and I go, it's going to be a mistake if you put all this stuff in here. You want something a little simpler than this because you don't want the eye to be immediately drawn to your chandelier. You want everybody to be happy with the room, to go in and not have any particular piece of element in the room overpowering all the others. The client told me basically what they wanted, and we created the design elements in metal. which included the hinge straps. The hinges are actually working hinges that were produced with the door. We just created the straps to make them look old-fashioned. This door handle was hand forged. I did the whole thing myself. This is a chandelier that I did for a home in Ohio. They had the shades custom made and hand painted by an artist in New Mexico, and they had the shades then delivered to me so that I can size them up for making the iron retaining rings. The screen itself has no feet, but it has this little detail of these little turtles on a log, and the turtles on the log are actually acting as the feet for the fireplace screen. The client wanted me to see the front door that she had ordered. The front door's got some very geometric, circular looking things, patterns going on, and she wanted to take the concept of that front door, which she absolutely loved, and put it into a railing. This is what we came up with. This is a rail we did for a home in Kiowa Island, South Carolina. The lady of the house wanted songbirds in it, so there's a couple of songbirds in this rail. This railing had to adhere to the code requirements of the community, so there's no spaces that were allowed that was greater than 4 inches. Lady of the home wanted a crab theme for the entire home. It has a hand reposé crab on the apron of the hood. This is all done in copper and mild steel.
When you first start a project, do you see the finished design, or does it evolve over time?
Sometimes it evolves over time. When I get out here and actually start bending metal, I have to change ideas and shapes and things like that. Most of the time, my client will give me artistic liberty, manufacturing liberty to produce the product. I say we tack it in a couple spots just to kind of hold its position.
You obviously spend a lot of time working in the shop. What do you like about it so much?
The creativity. Creativity is, this kind of business allows me to be creative, to problem solve, to come up with concepts and ideas. And then of course, once the final product is actually made, probably the best thing in the world is for somebody to look at it and go, oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
I understand you're passing your knowledge of ornamental art down to your daughter.
Yes.
How did she get involved in the business?
She was a kid that was not, we'll say, college material. She'd be the first to admit that. Right. But she was very good with her hands. She's very artistic. Proven herself to be a very good smith. She's welding beautiful things, very intricate things. She's put together some very large chandeliers now, some vent hoods that are very complex.
How did you get involved in your father's business?
When I was growing up, my dad never put a car in the garage. It was always a place where he would light the forge and hit steel on an anvil all day long. As I started getting into high school and trying to figure out what I was doing with my life, I also spent a lot of time thinking about how if no one else in the family took up the mantle, at some point the business would end with him, and that kind of legacy. I felt it really important to at least get involved, even if eventually it does come to an ultimate end.
and she's understanding more and more about this business and what it takes to satisfy a client.
Because there's really just not a lot of people that do your kind of work,
Yeah.
and you don't want it to see faded into some automated process where it all looks the same. Unlike a lot of part-time hobbyists and craftsmen, this is a full-time business. You have employees.
It is, yeah.
Well, what are some of the challenges that you face as a working artist?
Well, as a working artist, it's difficult sometimes to relay this information to the employees. Depending on their skill level, I can pass some things on to them. Sometimes I can't, and I'm kind of faced with their limitations. As they work here, they gain a little bit more knowledge on some of the things that need to be done. But when it comes time to actually creating a true piece of art, I actually have to come out here and get my hands dirty.
Is there a particular part of the process that you especially enjoy?
I think working with the clients.
Okay.
I really like sitting down and listening to them, see what they want, understanding their needs, and fulfilling their dreams.
Now that you've seen an ornamental craftsman at work, I'm sure you have a greater appreciation of the time and skill needed to make something by hand. It takes passion, practice, and time. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next time on HandMade.